Awesome. Okay. Josh, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Josh Perry. I'm a life coach. I love pickleball. I've been very focused on understanding the brain, understanding the body, and how those two work in tandem, and how it impacts us on the pickleball court in a very, lots of different ways. So it's been a fun journey, and just excited to chat.
So, and we've known each other for a couple of years now. Yeah. Lots of pickleball and yeah. So we wanted to kind of talk about like maybe something that other people are facing with mental things with pickleball, and then maybe focus on stuff that's going on with me. I know for myself, at this point at a tournament, whether I do really good or whether I do okay is more a mental thing. So I am pretty interested to see how it can help me. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but I'm excited for it. And I think you brought up probably the main one that most people are facing is nerves. And so you said earlier, most people, it's like, well, just fix your nerves, don't be nervous. But what would you actually say to someone who's struggling with nerves?
So I've ran into people. I was in the Vegas regional last year, and a couple of buddies of mine came up to me, and it was their first big tournament. And so I was like, how you feeling? What's going on? And, one of them was like, oh, I'm actually feeling really nervous.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, what if you talked to that part of you and you acknowledged it and showed gratitude for that part? And that's such a foreign concept. It's like, wait, why would I do that? I don't like the nerves. Like, I want to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the mindset, is that if we just don't have we try to not have nerves by telling ourselves don't have nerves.
Uh-huh.
And so I told him to do the opposite, to welcome that part in and to acknowledge it, and to actually find it within his body. Because so often in our society, we're just not taught to like go into the body. We try to fix things inside our brain, and we kind of ignore our bodies. And so I had him just check in with his body and look for it. And a lot of times nerves will show up in our chest area. And if you like put your focus on it and thank it for being there, it will actually, it's an energy that will kind of open up. And with that, you can get curious with it and ask what it's trying to do for you. Mm-hmm. And this typically stems from childhood stuff as we're learning. And so he talked to this part of him, and I had him ask, what is it trying to do for you? And he's like, oh, well, it wants me to do well, wants me to not make mistakes and not let my partner down. And we can all relate with those make sense. Mm-hmm. And so you can talk to that part and actually say, thank you for what you're trying to do for me. And I just want to let you know that the strategy that you're trying to use by creating all this tenseness in my body is actually creating the opposite of what you want. So, and then you can ask that part, you kind of treat it like have you ever seen, what's that Pixar show with the characters inside the brain?
Oh, Inside Out.
Inside Out. Yeah, I was like, in and out. I was trying to remember.
You're thinking about food.
And so that's right. Yeah, I need a burger. But if you see it like just like that, with those different characters inside your brain,
yeah,
and treat it like that instead of like trying to reject it or banish it. Mm-hmm. You welcome it in and you acknowledge it and thank it, and you just ask if it's open to a different strategy.
Yeah.
And so what I let this one of my buddies know, I said, what if you come up with a strategy that, oh, let's assess how our day went, and then look for ways to pull from the mistakes to improve in the future. Ask that part if it's open to that strategy instead of just using the tenseness. And you can kind of feel in your body if that part is open to it. You'll kind of feel like this expansive energy versus the contraction that shows up when we're nervous. Does that make sense?
I'm can you recap just a tiny bit the last couple things you said? The last thing you
Totally.
said?
Yeah. This is a new concept, so it's, I like that you want the recap. So basically, when we're in that tense scenario, when our body is using tension, it's actually a collapsing feeling where it feels like we're just squeezed in.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then when we're in the flow, we've all experienced the flow. That's when we're wide open. We're not, we're not contracted. We're open.
Yeah.
So, and if you see it like that, it's all just energy, whether it's nervous energy or whether it's flowing energy, just like in nature, if there's a dam, it's stopped off. But if it's a river that's flowing, it's just naturally going. And that's that energy that we want in a pickleball tournament, is to just be in the flow and to just naturally be going.
Okay. So basically you would say that being nervous is like a dam, and we need to let the dam go. We need to let it be a flowing river.
Totally.
Okay. And then I really like I like what you said about like talking to your, like, the nervous part of yourself, and like figuring out, I mean, I guess you're like more finding out really in yourself why you're being nervous. And then it sounds like from what you're saying, the nervous, like it's trying to do something good, but it's doing it the wrong way. And so you're trying to address it and fix it in a more positive way. And I would never, I mean, the way you phrased it initially, I was like, wow, I would have never thought to like ask myself that. And so I think that's really cool. And I think even if I like disagree, even if I disagree with something, if I have a different perspective of it, like you brought up something I would never think of, I think that's really interesting. But also I've never tried it. So how can you disagree with something you've never tried? So anyways, that's really cool. I like that. And also I like thought of that for myself. I'm like, well, I don't get nervous, but also I like have other things that, like, I'm sure there's a reason why my body tries to do it or why my mind tries to do it, but I don't want it. I should try to work it out that way for whatever that is. So I think it could be useful, even if someone doesn't have nerves, they could do it for whatever else they're struggling with.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like how you said that if you disagree, give it a try. You don't have to take my word for it.
Yeah. Okay. And then so tell us, how did he handle the nerves a lot better, or how did that story end up going?
So he actually still struggled with the nerves. And so because it was a regional, it was a big, qualifier for nationals. And so it's not like it's not a magic wand. It's not a magic pill. Because our brain still is detecting, like our brain is designed to look for threats. It's trying to keep us alive. And it's the perception of a threat. That's what kicks into fight or flight. And that's really where anxiety comes from. So we don't want to get rid of anxiety. Like, anxiety is a good thing. We want to be able to manage it. And so a lot of it is, there's just different tools and I only had like 30 seconds with him. And so
Yeah.
being able to breathe, being able to be mindful, being able to, one thing I'll do is like touch my paddle with my hand, just so I can be present right in the moment. So I'm not like worried about the future. I'm not worried about my mistakes. I'm right here, right now. Because if you think about our bodies are right here, right now. They're not in the future. They're not in the past.
Right.
So when we can connect with our bodies, we're right there in the moment. So that's another tool. So he still dealt with the nerves after that. And so it is a developing skill that just needs dialed in.
Right. Yeah. And so like touching the paddle is more of like a meditative like technique. Yeah.
Yep.
And then let's see. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like a lot of the nerves is a good thing. And maybe it's like a load of the gun. It can be used for good. It could be used for bad. It's just how we use it. So, I mean, we don't maybe necessarily want to throw all the guns away in the world, but we just need to handle them correctly.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So, I mean, realistically, though, do you think if you had like 10 minutes with him, you would have been able to help him more? Or, I mean, obviously, you can't force him or control him, but what do you? It just sounds like 30 seconds wasn't long enough.
Yeah. Well, and what it is it's you gather, like, you need to gather the knowledge. I was teaching a skill, and then you go use it, right? And when you think about a baby walking, they need time to develop the skill of walking. It's not like you just give them the skill and they do it. And that's true of everything, right? We teach people to dink, and they still need time to develop that skill. So I'll still have times where, with the knowledge I have, I still deal with mental stuff on the court. It's not like I have the knowledge, and so now it's not a thing for me. It's just there's different layers, there's new awareness, and then it's like, oh, let me figure out what happened there. And once you look at something, you gain that awareness, and you look at it from a lens of how can I improve? How can I use this as feedback, instead of like, oh, I don't ever want to watch myself on film because then I'll see all my mistakes. But those mistakes are actually how we learn. Like, there's brain science around that we need mistakes in order to improve.
Yeah.
But we kind of live in a society where we want to hide those mistakes instead of use them for our benefit.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, hopefully people at home got some things for how to deal with nerves. I know I got some good stuff out of that. Thank you. I want to ask you, because I think, and you were talking about this earlier, basically you're more interested in less like surface level problems, and you're more interested in diving in and like really trying to attack the root of problems, which takes longer, but sounds like you're more interested in that. I know for myself, I feel like I've started, anyways, how do I say this? I meditate pretty much daily. And I'm pretty in the moment a lot of the times. But I feel like maybe there's grief, or like you said, there's childhood stuff that I haven't dealt with. How do you, like, and I think that I'm more interested in you teaching me how I would like take care of that on my own, maybe also. So maybe someone at home could like they go and take care of it themselves too.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot there. But it's very similar to what I just talked about. It's so using meditation is a perfect way. And when we want to define meditation, because there's different practices there's no right or wrong when we're getting quiet and we're being present. Um, so how I like to use meditation is becoming aware of my thoughts and allowing them to be there.
Right.
And then when I have different thoughts, I check in with my body. And what I have become aware of is each thought actually creates a sensation, like a pocket of energy in my body. So I can think back on, let's just take pickleball for instance. I can think about a tournament, or I can think of a time when I played and maybe I didn't play very well. And with that thought, I can feel a sensation in my body. Okay. And then I hone in, I focus in on that part in my body. Usually it's in the throat area, or maybe the chest, sometimes in the gut, stomach area. And I just focus in on that and I allow it to be, I just give it my attention.
Right.
And I allow it, like a lot of times as I've been on this journey of learning, I've learned different skills or processes to do to heal the grief or the shame or the childhood stuff. And then I realized that there was a part of me that became that there were processes I needed to run on me instead of just allowing me to be. Like I believe that we're all just right as we are, that we can improve, but that we don't need to improve, because if we need to improve, that indicates we're not enough as we are. So as I focus in on that part in my body, let's say it's in my chest or my heart area, I just allow it. I don't shame it. I don't try to banish it. I don't judge it. I just let it be. And as like, now that you have you have a son, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this will be really this will be valuable information for you raising a little boy now. We want to allow our kids to be. When they're sad, we don't shame them. We try not to shame them. A lot of us have patterns of behavior, but anyway, we allow our children to be and allow them to just grow in that environment of safety and love. And likewise, we need to give that to these parts inside our body. They need safety and love to just be, and to be seen, and to be heard, and to be acknowledged. And when we do that, it actually, the energy will leave our body, and how it leaves is often tears. Maybe we cry, which as a little boy, he cries when he's sad, but then you and I have grown up in this society where we learned that crying as boys is not okay, So with that grief that you're describing, or not describing, but mentioned, are you able to find it in your body?
I mean, I haven't. I mean, I can feel that. I guess I can feel the energy when I focus on it.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good pickleball point. I liked that you brought up, like, you can usually kind of remember how it felt when you like played really good at a tournament, or like you said, when you play really bad. And usually, like I'll tell my students this, or I'll try to do it. I'll try to go back to the place where I was, or how I felt when I was playing really, really good. And I'll try to copy that to like the present moment. And then oftentimes it can help quite a bit. So anyways, I thought that was an interesting idea you brought up. But yeah, I guess I haven't super tried to focus on, like, do you focus on the individual grief, or like emotions, or how do you approach it?
Yeah. So if I back up just a little bit, so when I'm meditating, I'm I have a really good guided meditation. It's not mine. It's one I listen to. I'd be happy to send you that. He
Okay.
just guides you through it. That's been really beneficial for me, just to be in the emotion, in that, because often what I'll do is I'll start to feel it, and then I'll think of like 100 things that I need to be doing instead of feeling the pain. Okay, so suddenly, well, as soon as that pain wants to come up, it's like, oh, I got to go shave, or I got to run an errand. Instead of sitting with that, because that's truly all it needs is to be sat with. And often that can be the hardest thing, and especially in our distracted world that we live in, we have a billion ways that we can distract ourselves nowadays, instead of just being with that pain. And so our bodies are, if you imagine like the car has the check engine light, and that's what nerves are, that's what triggers are. Like our relationships will, when our buttons get pushed, we kind of blame the other person. Oh, they're always pushing my buttons. But if you look at the button as an indication that there's something inside that needs processed, it's an energy that just needs expressed, then instead of like with the check engine light, it's like putting duct tape over the light and just ignoring it and hoping it goes away.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're doing when we don't process our emotions. We're putting duct tape over the check engine light. So the nerves that show up in a pickleball tournament is a check engine light, but we haven't been taught how to check in with our bodies. So that's kind of my message, is to teach people that in any given moment we're having emotions. We're humans. Our bodies are designed to emote.
Okay.
And if we learned as a little kid that certain emotions are good, certain emotions are bad, then we will stop doing the bad ones and we'll keep doing the good ones. But those emotions get stuck in our body, and that's what creates a lot of the disease that we're dealing with today, and the depression that many people have. Often just weren't taught how to express emotions. Okay, so there's a lot there.
So I guess a couple things with it. I feel like I could address it, or like find the mourning or the grief, but how do you like how do you express it, or how do you like let it go, really?
Okay, so grief is a challenging one because it has lots of emotions wrapped in there.
Okay.
There's hurt, there's anger, there's sadness. I think there's, well, it depends on where you read, but there's 6, 7, 9 stages of grief, and it's not a straight line. And so it's allowing whatever is coming up to just be. And for me, so I'm almost 49. For 4 decades, I was very numb to my emotions. If you asked me what I was feeling, I would have no idea, because I learned to turn it off. And that didn't mean, well, that didn't just mean the negative emotions. Like that was happiness and joy too. I was flatlined as far as emotions go. I was going through this life not having highs, not having lows. So learning to be okay with emotions will be part of this for you. I don't know where you are with emotions and how safe it was to get angry. A lot of times, little boys, it's okay to be angry, but little girls don't get to be angry. And little girls get to cry, but little boys don't get to cry. And so we learn to turn those parts of us off and judge them, and we're uncomfortable with emotions, and then we pass those down too. which I realized I've done that with my kids. I've taught them not to feel. And now I'm learning all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it's okay to feel. I know what I told you before, but I was wrong, And so
Yeah.
in your meditation, sitting and not just worrying about your thoughts, but start to tune into your body
Okay.
and just allow what comes up to be without judgment, without rejecting it, without, does that make sense? Does that help?
So saying the last part again, when I'm meditating, pay more attention to my body and like what it's feeling.
Yeah, well, let's do this. So when you just played with Joey this last weekend, right? What thoughts come up when I mentioned that?
I mean, honestly, I felt like I wasn't as there mentally. Like when I go and play pickleball, I try to give like a gold medal performance. Or I'd like to imagine like if I only played pickleball one more time, like I'd like to be proud of that. I feel like this last weekend I wouldn't be so like I didn't put my best foot forward, even though we did end up medaling. I did halfway decent, like mentally, which is why we ended up doing it. But I wasn't able to do as well as I'd like to. So I mean, that's kind of what comes to my mind. And I feel like I didn't bring my best foot forward because, I mean, I guess more of mental stuff outside of pickleball, and I wasn't as prepared for the actual tournament mentally. So I also think this kind of stuff can be good because maybe not necessarily right for the pickleball moment, but setting up to have success outside of the pickleball court, so then you can have success on the pickleball court too. But yeah, that's what comes to mind. I think I didn't give my best performance, and I can live with it, and I know it too, and I've learned a lot from it from the tournament. So and I did have okay success. So yeah, that's kind of I guess my recap of it.
Okay, and so with those thoughts, can you just kind of scan your body? Maybe your chest area, your throat, with the idea that you didn't do as well as you wanted. Can you feel anything in your body?
I think I feel that I mean, as a negative thought, it's like, well, that happens more than like that happens a lot. Like that's what that kind of the feeling is. It's like, well, that like I'm used to that, or that happens a lot.
Okay. So
yeah.
are you able to just scan your body for like a physical sensation when you think that happens a lot? Can you find any physical sensation?
Yeah, I guess I just feel it's kind of a hole in my chest area where it's
Okay.
like it's and part of that feeling is it's like it's not enough.
Okay, right. Yeah. And so that's something we all deal with. And really I want to help normalize that we all struggle or we deal with that feeling of not enough. And because it feels uncomfortable, that thought, and it's in our body, we naturally vacate our body and come up into our brain. So we've learned as a strategy to avoid the discomfort. So if you just focus in on your chest, and if you don't want to do this now, that just let me know. Because I know it feels vulnerable, like going into our body. It's especially as well as a man, it's been very uncomfortable feeling things in front of people. So I'm trying to normalize that too, but I understand if it's uncomfortable for you right now.
I mean, I can do it. Part of it is I'm crazy and I'm obsessed with pickleball, and I'll do whatever I can. So yeah, if I have to do that, then I have to do that, right? Um, yeah, and that, I guess that brings up a question. Sometimes I feel like I'll recognize something's going on, or I'll recognize that I'm like feeling this, but it feels like, and I think it's a problem of expressing it or letting it go. It feels like it's never being expressed or never letting go. So I just I end up brushing it aside, or I end up not addressing it as well as I should, because it's like, well, I like, this is not never ending. Like, it's just in here and I can't get rid of it, kind of a thing.
Right.
How would you, so you say just focus on it, and then, I mean, what do we do at that point?
Okay, yeah, good question. So if you imagine an emotion, well, how I like to phrase it is the life cycle of an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you imagine we're feeling happy, and there's a life cycle of that emotion, maybe it lasts 2 minutes.
Right.
So happiness, we have no problem expressing,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
We can hang out and laugh. We allow that emotion to be expressed from our body through laughter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but sadness and grief, anger, shame, guilt, those ones that we deemed negative, they're not really negative. They're just really uncomfortable in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't want to allow that life cycle to complete of
Okay.
those uncomfortable ones.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. So I had the thought of like let's say there's a mom, we're in a grocery store, there's a 6-year-old, and we're checking out with the
Mm-hmm.
checkout aisle with all the candy that's displayed there. There's a 6-year-old, and he asks, "Hey mom, can I have some gum? Can I have this gum?" And mom was like, "Yeah." And so he grabs the candy, he feels the joy, he's allowed to feel it naturally. uh, all parents want kids to feel the happy emotions, right?
Right.
But let's say mom says no, and that 6-year-old gets angry, sad, frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
disappointed. But then mom doesn't want to have the kid make a scene in front of the other people. So she's like, stop acting that way. When he's feeling angry or disappointed, mom has disconnected or shortened the life cycle of that emotion.
So I guess so my thought is like, isn't the parent supposed to like comfort their child, but like not, or maybe they comfort them, but they're not supposed to like tell them to stop? Is that really? Because I mean, I think it'd be kind of odd if you just like watch them cry, kind of a thing.
Sure. And there is the societal norms, and there's the place and time and all of those things. And so we just need to be careful as parents that we don't create beliefs within our kid that this emotion is good, this one's bad, don't do this one. And at the same time, you're right, there it's okay to comfort them, but what if we acknowledged the anger and we say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I could see why you would feel angry about that, I could see why you feel disappointed about that. And when even that phrasing allows the little boy to be in that anger.
Uh-huh.
Because what happens if you imagine, they say anger is just, well, emotion is just energy in motion, and that if the energy isn't allowed to be expressed, it actually gets stored in our bodies.
Right.
So when you're feeling that in your chest, that's an indication that there is a pocket of energy that hasn't been expressed. It hasn't left your body, so it's in your body still.
Mhm.
And we have layers and layers and layers of this energy that's just stuck because we haven't been taught how to move it through our bodies.
Mhm.
So in meditation, back to your question, what do we do? You get to be that place in that meditative state where you're having the thoughts, you're tuning into your body, and you're seeing what comes up energy wise, emotion wise.
Okay.
Maybe there's rage, maybe there's sadness, because honestly, none of our parents knew how to, well, not none. I'm sure there's some. There's a lot of our parents that didn't know how to allow emotions to just be. You know, they were doing their best, but just
Right.
didn't have the information. And so this stuff gets trapped in us, and then we don't know it's still there because we can't see it.
Mhm.
We can feel it, and it shows up in different scenarios, but we often, like if we're on the freeway and we get cut off and we feel that discomfort in our body, we blame the other driver.
Mhm.
And then we don't look inside, we just get angry at the other driver.
Yeah.
But if we instead say, oh, that driver cutting in front of me brought up some discomfort in my body, let me check in with my body, what's going on there?
Hmm.
Oh, I'm feeling frustrated. Is this present day frustration, or is this energy from the past that I never processed because I didn't know to do that?
And then do you process it there?
Yeah, because really it takes like 10 seconds. Even if I feel sad and I feel this need to cry, in the
Mhm.
past, I would avoid crying at all costs. Now I just let it come up and out, and I cry for like 10 seconds. It moves out of my body and I'm moving forward.
Mhm.
We just have avoided emotions, the negative ones in our society.
Yeah. So I feel like I probably wouldn't be able to cry like just on demand, like on like it just probably wouldn't happen whether I wanted it to or not.
Right.
Um, I'm thinking like for me, maybe breathing is how I can express it, or I don't know how it's supposed to really come out, I guess, because you're saying crying, you keep bringing up crying, and I don't think that's going to naturally happen for me.
Okay.
What would you say would naturally happen for a lot of people? Or
Yeah. Yeah. Crying has been the hardest thing for me.
Mhm.
It's been over the last 4 years probably of allowing that to happen, where I've been so resistant. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Right.
I went years and years and years without crying. And so um, really it's just a matter of getting the energy out of your body. So you could, I think there's actually stores, I don't know what they're called, like you can go and break things, like
Mhm.
break china or plates. You throw plates against the wall to get that anger out. You can dance, you can go for a run. It's really the movement, moving your body. um, Breathing helps.
Mhm.
I've tried breath work. Have you ever heard of that?
It sounds familiar. Why don't you say what it
Okay.
is for everyone?
Yeah, so this is something I just discovered the last few months, and there's guided breathwork sessions on YouTube for free.
Uh-huh.
It's different ways of breathing that will get it just moves energy out of your body.
Mhm.
Um, and what I can do is like I can send you some links that I recommend. You can put them in the
Yeah.
description or the comments or whatever. Ones that I try, because for me, it's just been this journey of discovery, like how do I get this out of my body? I didn't know it was in there. Now I can see that it's like impacting my self-worth, how I see myself, how I feel about myself, my comfort level in being around people. All of this is emotion related, and I just didn't know. So one of the so back to like, how do you get it out of you? I had a tournament partner that was so amped, and I was like, I had just saw like a video on ducks.
Okay.
When ducks get into a fight, they'll do their thing, they'll fight, and then they'll go to different parts of the river, lake, whatever, and they'll shake to get the energy off their bodies. And if you see like a zebra that's being chased by a cheetah, cheetahs chase zebras. Anyway, if they get away, they'll do the same thing. They'll shake to get the energy off their body. So you can actually do like dancing or shaking. If you go to YouTube and just, I don't know what it's called, there's probably a fancy name, but shaking to get the energy off your body. So when my partner he was so amped, and I was like, you need to sprint to that fence and back just to get that nervous energy out. Like, it really is energy. And so he just sprinted and came back, and it like, it dropped his level down to where he could play.
That's interesting. Okay. So let's say, so like for me, I probably have more energy available. Slash, I feel like I'd like to think I have more passion, or I want to win more than most people. So I feel like I have more energy available. I think it's a strength though. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you have to control, there's more there, you have to control it, you have to be more aware and more, I think you have to be more in control. Would you say though, like I guess in between games, you just kind of let your energy go down again, because it's a bit of a roller coaster, right? In a tournament, you play a game, then you stop, play again. Do you just kind of let it happen, or would you shake in between games, or like what's your thought on that?
So for you specifically, or in general?
Both.
Okay, so with you, do you feel like you're amped the whole time, or does it drop in between?
It can be a bit of a roller coaster. I'd say when I'm playing, I don't know, sometimes I'm really focused and I'm not expressing emotion at all, and I can play pretty good there. And then other times I'm like yelling in between every point. You usually good emotion, but I'm like yelling every time. So I kind of have two options there. And I don't know if, I guess when I'm yelling, I guess it's a little bit more emotion, and I'm maybe expressing it with the yelling. And then when I'm not yelling, it's a lot of emotion and focus, but I'm more directing it to focus, where I'm just like keeping it there and not letting it out as much. And I think both can be really strong. I'm not sure which one's better.
Yeah, I was going to ask which one you think, and then if it's the one where you're yelling, do you need to be yelling, or can you create that state in your mind without the yell, or is that important? Just as a question.
I think it is. I think sometimes it is just like letting it go. Like you're wanting it so bad, and you finally got what you wanted, and it's like letting that go a little bit, and then like you're resetting, you're starting over, and then you do it all over again. But I guess it's a little more of an emotional approach, because you're just really wanting it, and then you finally get what you really wanted.
What emotion do you think you're feeling, just as an exercise of discovery for yourself?
I guess it's a bit of um, I don't know if it's just a lot of energy where I'm really dialed in, I'm really focused, I'm really trying to win the point. And then I guess it's kind of letting that go, where it's like, it's almost like I was, and I was expecting myself, and I knew I could win the point, and then I won it. And then I'm kind of letting out that energy where I was anticipating it. And it's like, whew, it finally happened. Yeah, something like that. I don't think it's actually like a legit emotion. I think I'm mixing up the terms emotion and energy, because it's kind of a blank. It's kind of blank energy. I'm just playing with a lot of energy, which or a lot of passion. But I'd assume it's kind of a positive emotion or a positive energy. But yeah, I'd say it's more energy.
Yeah, I think that I like that distinction, because a lot of times when we're playing bad, it's still energy, but it feels like it's stagnant or bogged down.
Uh-huh.
And so what I think will benefit is just that awareness
Okay.
of what you're experiencing, and recognizing when you're in that beneficial state
Uh-huh.
and when you're not, and then what can you do to turn the dial to create that again.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so I talked about how this last weekend I felt like I didn't do as good as I should have. And I kind of felt like right from the beginning of the day, I was off somewhat mentally. And I was aware of it, but there's only so much I can do. It's kind of like, I mean, it's like if you're sick or if your ankle hurts, I mean, you're only going to be able to do so much, and you kind of just have to deal with it. And so that was kind of what happened. Was I was just like, I was trying to do the best with what I had in the moment. Um, and it was barely enough to get by often, but I mean, at the end of the day, you just have to get by. You just don't lose two times, right? But like my coach that was there, he was like, yeah, like you were a shadow of what you normally are. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know that, and like, and I know you know that, but I have to work with what I have. And so, anyways, I guess just like sometimes even I think it's good to be aware of it, but sometimes it's you can only it doesn't really change things. But I think maybe you can learn better if you're aware of what's going on. Um, like for example, I think a lot of people like for example, with the YouTube videos, most people aren't interested in mental pickleball stuff. When really, for like I said earlier, for me, it's the difference between whether I win or lose is if I'm really good mentally. So I think if more people are aware of what's going on, maybe less immediate results, but I think long term they should see some better results. But yeah, so anyways, I think I was aware of what was going on, but I think I have to work on it more long term. I don't think I could have fixed it really in the moment. But yeah, anyways.
Well, definitely. I think that introspection on the weekend,
Uh-huh.
that's really where we learn what went well, what happened mentally.
Uh-huh.
And then, I like to record my matches
Mm-hmm.
so that I can figure out like footwork or court position, or, if we don't look back, there's no way to determine how to improve.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe not no way, but that's a good way to do it. And likewise, there's the physical side and then the mental side. And so I like that you're you're aware, you're discovering, you're searching, what's going on inside me that impacted the day.
Uh-huh.
And then so one thing that I like to do is journal.
Okay.
Journaling is a good way to just like figure out, to get it down just on paper.
Right.
So that you can be like, okay, I was dealing with this, I was thinking all these things, and then learning that skill of where, when you think those things, where are you feeling it in your body? And see if you can just allow those to move through your body.
So you journal more so you're recapping more in depth, and then you can address things that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of a way to keep track. And a lot of times my thoughts are like so jumbled that I just need to write.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, we haven't talked about the conscious or subconscious mind at all. When you're writing, it'll be the conscious thoughts, like the conscious line of thinking
Uh-huh.
for the first few minutes. And then as you keep going, it'll actually start to go into the subconscious.
Okay.
And the subconscious is really where all of our patterns of behavior exist.
Mm-hmm.
And they call it a subconscious because it's below our awareness,
Right.
until we become aware of it. And so that meditation practice, the introspection, those are all ways to become aware. And once we're aware, we can do something with it. That's the power of sitting with yourself and getting to know you.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not going to get to know me, nobody else is.
Right.
Like I need to know myself better than I know anyone else. And so that's another skill to develop,
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Will you send me let's see. So we had the breathing.
Mhm.
What was that called? The force breathing or
So they call it breath work.
breath work?
There's different different techniques.
Okay.
And I'll send you a few. There's one channel on YouTube that he has probably dozens of different guided sessions where there's music in the background, and then he's doing like, he's telling you when to inhale, when to exhale, and you go, like some of them are 45 minutes long. And it's not anything I had ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get into that mental state by breathing, your conscious mind actually steps to the side, and a lot of the subconscious emotions that have been stored just naturally release.
Okay.
Like halfway through, one of the ladies I listened to, she's like, okay, let's move some energy now. And she's like, I want you to let out a big scream. And she's like, if you have neighbors, you can put a pillow over your mouth so it's muffled. Because I'm
Right.
like, what if my neighbors hear me screaming? They're going to call the cops or whatever. So just being able to scream in the middle of that releases energy. So, and then I'll send you the other guided meditation where he teaches you how to really be present with your thoughts, with your body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of that I'm listening to now. That's just, it's allowing for a lot of emotion to just come up.
Okay. And this brings up an interesting point, because I actually did less good at this weekend, but I feel like the top players, or a lot of them, and really what we should be trying to do on the court is not show too much negative emotion. For example, like I used to do this and I don't do it anymore, like hit your leg with your paddle, or like just showing a negative emotion, because if anything, I think the opponent, they kind of can take a big sigh of relief, like, oh, like Austin's losing it mentally, or Austin, like I'm breaking him, right? So I think, but you just talked about earlier, like we should be feeling the feelings, etc. So I mean, what do you think? Do you just suppress it, like in the moment, the negative emotions, or I know some people have like little things they do that they express it, but then it's not like super glaring. And then, anyways, what would you suggest for that kind of a thing?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you're right. You don't want to like be screaming or crying after a point, you know.
Could you imagine? You're just bawling.
So imagine the I just thought of In and Out again.
Okay.
Inside
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine that. So if that frustration comes up, you don't want to just say, don't feel frustrated. Instead, just allow it. It doesn't mean like you have to throw something.
Sure.
We've kind of we have this vision of what anger looks like. We're punching a wall, or we're throwing something, or we're screaming at someone. We can be angry without like unhealthily managing it.
Yeah.
So even if we're just angry and we just acknowledge it, maybe we're walking back from to receive the serve, and we talk to ourselves in that moment, and we just say, I see that you're angry, and it makes sense why you're feeling that way. And then it's like it's going to come up and out while you're playing, instead of that. Because like I've had instances where either like what used to really bother me was like it would hit the net, tip off it, and hit me in the chest.
Right.
And I would feel this anger come up in my body. And I knew it wasn't from that moment. I knew it was from childhood that was bringing awareness to itself in that moment, but I couldn't deal with it right then. So I just would acknowledge it and be like, yeah, it makes sense. It hit you in the chest. You know, I can see why you would feel that way, instead of don't be angry. You know, it's kind of the kid in the grocery store line again, allowing the anger to be without just let the life cycle to complete. Maybe it takes 10 seconds for that anger to come up and out. Or maybe I just make a note, like I acknowledge it, and then later that night afterwards, or the next morning, I'm doing a meditation, and I'll sit down and I'll think back to that moment, and I'll just be present with what happened, and I allow all of those emotions to come up afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. That brings up a couple interesting points. One is, do you still get mad when it hits the net and hits your chest? Like,
oh
wow.
Yeah. So this will be the exercise for you and anyone listening, is to test it out. Like, I don't want you to just say, anyway, try it out. Like things that trigger you, things that bother you, buttons that get pushed, sit with yourself quietly, you know, set aside 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it takes, and just be with that feeling without judgment. Just allow it to be, let it, and it may not be ready to come up. You can't force it. You can't make it. And maybe it'll take a few sessions on different days, and you're just like, I'm still here, I'm still seeing you, it's still safe to be. When you're ready, I'm here. And then suddenly that feeling will be like, oh, okay, it is safe. And suddenly you'll feel some anger that will come up. And if we have anger is they call it a secondary emotion. It's a cover-up emotion. It shows up, it allows us to show up big as a protection. But underneath or behind that anger is usually hurt or sadness. And so if we let the anger come up and go away, there will usually be some hurt feelings or some sadness, and just allow that to be there too. So when it was hitting the net, it was a reminder of me when I was little, and it was like I was kind of the butt of the joke, because when I got hit, people would laugh, and I would feel that from decades ago when I was a kid and got picked on, and they would laugh at me, and I didn't know how to feel that back then. So it stayed in my body. So I've spent some time with that. I've felt that, allowed that sadness to come up and just be there for that little version of me that didn't have anyone back then. Now when it hits me, I'm like, where's my paddle? I gotta hit that one next time.
Yeah, I like, even if you don't have time to really like address, like to really take care of the emotion in the moment, just addressing it sounds like an adult way to handle it, where it's like, oh, like hit the net, then it hit my face, I'm angry, that makes sense. Like
Totally.
okay, like it hit my face, like my face hurts, like deep breath, like yeah, that hurt, and then just like staying there for maybe a couple seconds and then moving on. I think that's a more adult way to handle it than like, oh, it hit my face, like it's okay, that didn't hurt, like because it did hurt. So
Right.
anyways,
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah.
And then so I think my self-imposed homework is, I feel like oftentimes for myself, I'll feel like I know the negative emotions are happening in my body, etc., or negative energy, and I like look into it, and it's like it's like a big gulf, and it's like a big black hole, and I get scared, and then I just like chicken out of like addressing it, or then I never address it, or I do something else as like a little band-aid or whatever, right? So anyways, I'm gonna try to not be so scared to address it for longer, and then I'm gonna try to I'll try the shaking or the dancing, I'll try breath work. If I cry, I will let you know next time. But yeah, we'll see. I'll try to face my demons a little better. I think that will. And then I think also for those at home, like I think a lot of this stuff, once again, a lot of this stuff doesn't correlate as much for pickleball. But I feel like if you face a lot of your demons, etc., you're going to be a lot more patient with yourself and on the pickleball court. And that's usually like who's going, that has a lot to do with pickleball. I feel like whoever, like when the score is tied and it's just going back and forth, like sometimes I think some people get angry and they're like, man, like this is taking forever. But those who are like, well, I'm like, they just keep going and they stay patient with it, I feel like those are the people who usually end up winning in that situation. So anyways, I think we're deep diving, but I think it definitely does correlate with pickleball. And thank you for doing this with me. I think it's good content, and I think it'll help people.
Totally. Thank you. Yeah, this has been fun.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Pickle on, dudes at home. Pickle on.